Okay, fam, I am back, and man, I think I got a doozy of a MythLab for you guys tonight. Right, I'm really feeling like we're going to enjoy this because we're going to get to talk about two of my favorite shows. Right, two things that are super hot right now, and always you want to please the algorithm gods, right? But these are two shows, man, that I've been into since the inception of both these shows. Right, we're talking about The Boys, and we're talking about Invincible, two shows that are like just killing it right now. These are great wins for Amazon Prime right now. And The Boys still going, still got some season ahead of it. Invincible, we just got the season ender on Invincible, and it was a doozy, right? So I wanted to kind of talk about these two shows. One, because I like talking about modern storytelling. I'm always talking about like storytelling and how mythology evolves and all that stuff, right? All the time. And this is it on a couple of different levels, right? Like this gives us that on a couple of different levels. And the first level, of course, is like the scope of this story, like how big each of these stories go. And they got some similarities. They do have some core to both these stories that kind of bring these stories together. And obviously, the first thing. Let me copy. I'm sorry, I'm just getting the Facebook stream going right now. Just let me copy this title. I just want to get this going. The first thing that we notice about the boys and Invincible is obviously the character type that brings us back to the Superman variant. And I say the Superman variant because that's a thing now. We've seen a lot of Superman derivatives over this long period of time that Superman's been around. So both these stories introduce us into that narrative, right? And there's been a ton of like the so-called Superman narrative previously, right? I mean, we saw in the last few years, Brightburn and God damn, I'm just going to start this thing. There's been a proliferation of these like Superman type characters, right? They're always Superman kind of gone bad, right? And so we have in this series, right? We have what if Superman was a narcissist, and that's where we get Homelander, and the other one is obviously what if Superman or the Kryptonians were here to take over, and that's where we get Omni-Man at. So we see these two guys are central, at least early on. Both of these are very central to what's going on in the story. Obviously, this is still told a little bit more through Invincible, and the other story kind of told a little bit more through the boys. But overall, like we get it. We get like that. That's a central core of how they roll as a storyline. This is a fundamental structural thing about this core. It starts off with that, and I think for a lot of us, it was probably the thing that drew us in, right? Like that, it was kind of on that same vein. So that's a core that brought us together with these stories, although they diverge in vast ways from each other. There's not a lot of similarities other than that. Now, the other big central things I want to talk about is at their core is also Seth Rogen. That's why I had his picture stashed over there because I didn't want to have to go looking for it. But Seth Rogen is obviously the executive producer on both these huge mega hits, right? They're both coming from comic book backgrounds. Both of these kind of leverage that Superman guy, and this is Seth Rogen. And I think it's important to say that when we talk about Seth Rogen, this guy is a what we call millennial, right? He's right about 44, mid 40s. He is Canadian, right? He comes from British Columbia, so not an American. Not that that's bad, but that will matter when we talk about some of the cultural aspects that he's kind of helping portray in these two stories. So that's what I did want to mention. That's also their core. This is coming from one person, and there's a particular mindset about some of the stuff he's put out. So I wanted to mention that. I want because I think it's going to be a relevant part of the conversation. But that's as far as that part goes. Now I want to kind of dig into what each of the stories actually was about. Okay, so when we talk about the boys, this is a story about corruption in worship. It is societal corruption, 100%. This story is about celebrity worship. It is about brand loyalty. It's about propaganda, nationalism. There is fake moralities. The whole idea of the fake superheroes who are actors really, sells that right off the bat. It is consumerism. It is trauma that's hidden behind these layers of so-called polished individuals, right? Individuals who look like they're supposed to be the hero, but really they aren't even capable. They're not even good people at the beginning of it. So basically, these are soups are basically, social media influencers who walk around with nuclear bombs on their back. They're that dangerous. So Homelander is not evil because he's just evil. He kind of is. He is this American story kind of wrapped in this cape. He really represents, right, some very carefully detailed things about American culture through this character, through this entire story. And we have to pay attention to the stuff they do. They hit us with a lot of really off the hook stuff, but at the same time, they will come with some very insightful things. Okay. So this is what the story is really about. It is about, this consumerism. It is about Vaught International. Like Vaught itself, the core of all this is not just like a company. This is a lot of stuff rolled into one, right? This is Disney. This is Lockheed Martin. This is Fox News. This is big pharmaceutical companies. This is WWE. This is Silicon Valley, all kind of spun into this one corporate entity. So they're telling a lot of stories through this lens here. They're hitting a lot of things. They get very political, right? They deal up in the military. Like this is a very American story. This story, through the various stages of the characters, gives us insights into as far back as Nazi Germany. We get that part of the American story told through those characters. We get parts of Vietnam, right? And Soldier Boy was in Vietnam. We get parts of Vietnam told through the story, and then we progress to this, obviously modern culture of social media. So it is very much a culturally relevant, like it's a complete parody. And the story breaks down a lot, but I forgive it because there's so much symbolism and things that it's actually getting to. So that's the core of what the story is, and it's very different than what Invincible is, right? Invincible is a story about colonization. This is a very, very different story, just right off the rip. There's massive differences between what they're telling the audience, okay? Now, this is a story about a man named Brady, right? But it's not. This is a story about this Viltrumite empire who is colonizing other planets, and Earth is just now a colony. And their whole plan is to take over eventually, like they enslave other races, right? They do all these things. So if we really look at it, it's very brilliantly wrapped in the story of this family trauma, because Mark represents these two identities, two cultures coming together. This is really what he represents and why things play out for him, because he is ultimately fulfilling the Viltrumite agenda. I don't know if you guys realize it. Spoiler alert if you haven't watched the last episode, but the Viltrumites are going to win this. They are winning this. At this point, they are. I don't see any way out of this one right now, right? They are winning this. And Mark is 100% an instrument. In fact, this entire family is structured that if Nolan was continuing with his deception, he may have walked them into this victory by having his family conduct themselves the way that they did, right? And they furthered the Viltrumite influence on this planet. Now, the story is wrapped up in Mark getting his powers, this understanding himself, this betrayal of his father, the collapse of a family. Okay, it's those things, it's those elements. This is the day-to-day that they show us every day. And somehow some people forget that, yeah, the big story is that these guys were running around colonizing the entire universe. They were doing this shit to everybody. So it is very much that story. It's the story that is almost a subtext. But the subtext of the story is more powerful than what the main story is. Right. This is it forces me to kind of look at the Graysons completely different, right? Because throughout all this, you remain kind of wrapped in this protection. while everyone around you suffered, right? All the real losses were all other people. And the Graysons as the family helped usher all this in. They really, really did, right? I'll talk about that. But this is what the story is fundamentally about. It is about empire. It is about, trauma. Like, they represent, Omni-Man. It's funny. I've talked to some people, and to say Omni-Man was this abusive father, this disappointed patriarch, and to ignore that he was a colonial conqueror. I don't know how that title of unbearing father elevates above colonial conqueror, but this is essentially what the story is and what comes of that, what happens to the people. And the fact that they make what happens to the civilization around them a sub-story really gives us the mindset of those who are within the main, like the main cast of it, right? Like they're performative about what they feel has happened to humanity, but yet at the same time their actions double down on the things that ultimately cause exactly these problems for humanity. So this is kind of like what the story is. Now, the boys, obviously, if I have to judge them, I'm going to say right off the bat that these are both two of my favorite shows, right? So I'll be critical of them, but I've watched every single episode. I wouldn't miss them at all. I'll be sad when they're off the air. These are, to me, they're, I've enjoyed the shows a full like 4 years or 5 years they've each been out. Now, The Boys obviously feels like a more relevant film. It is a more relevant film. It's media, it's right-wing populism, it's Christian nationalism, it's race anxiety bubbling there, it's online radicalization, it's cult of personality, it is corporate capture of truth. It's through this media. It is spanning, really the story spans like, I'm going to say like 50, 60 years, right? We're going back to World War II, so, like 1930s to now, so 70, 90 years of history that it really covers. In some great detail when you talk about the foundation of thought, like what was going on during that time period, like very, very detailed, him being brought over to America. Again, things that are very accurate to American history. So this is what we get. This is what we get out of this story, right? It's very much a how shall I say it? It's the story about who we are told through this crazy lens, and somehow they're able to keep it just away from the main topic. Like they never really just get to it. So with both the stories, like Invincible again is a story that this is a story, man, that it's the first time we have seen a global colonization story. Like I don't know if we've seen global colonizers in that intimate frame ever. I mean, we hear mythologies about like the Alpha Centauris or the Draconians, whoever's come down, Anunnaki, who's come down and taken over, but we've never seen this intimate level, this view of this kind of story going down. So this is first. Now, for anyone who hasn't watched the stories, I'm going to be very, very upfront with you that these stories are very brutal. Both these stories are physically very brutal. Now, on the brutality level, I have to give this to Invincible. It is brutality on a whole nother scale. Like I used to watch a lot of anime as a kid, like the Korean and Japanese stuff, which is all very bloody. And this is right there, with it. And because it's animated, it can do this. It is very much like Invader Zim. Yeah, I have to check that out. I'm not up on it. Maybe I'm gonna have to get up on it. But welcome in, by the way. So like Invincible is like the brutality is the scale of power, the fragility of humanity, the consequence of godlike beings is so relevant in Invincible. Like these beings are of magnitudes of power that are just beyond it. The Boys is very brutal, but it's more like it's mixed with a lot of like moral like disgust. It's a lot of humiliation, exploitation, like depravity, there's addiction, narcissism, mental illness. This is corruption. This is the ugly lake that the boys swim in. So it's different. And then if we look at like the magnitude of power that these beings have, right? It's not even close. Like, if we took Homelander, basically the most powerful being in the boys universe, he would be mid tier at best in Invincible's world. You'd be lucky. He would be lucky if he could deal with Oliver. And I don't know that you could deal with Oliver, Homelander. I'm going to be very, very honest. I don't know. I think Oliver's trained a whole lot more than you, and I could see you taking that L to Oliver easily, right? So when we look at the power scales like Omni-Man, Invincible, Alan the Alien, the Viltrumites, they're all vastly outdoing what the boys. Homelander dominates the world like he's still a big fish in a much smaller pond, is what he is. These guys are on the cosmic level. Now, the best characters out of these two series, and I mean this in all sincerity, and I love the show. Like I'm not BSing you. I know the show very intimately. I didn't mean it like that, which is kind of weird with this show. But I know the characters well. I understand a lot of the character arcs, what the characters have been through. And I still say that Homelander is the top character because he's giving, like, literally the writing of the story and the way the actor is delivering it. He's giving one of the best examples of like true madness, like madness on a level that we hadn't seen because he's this tortured child. He's pathetic. He's needy. He's childish, but he's also omnipotent and he's also emotionally broken. And it's a toxic belief system that he has that develops out of some true like mental damage, like some real off the hook mental damage. So watching this performance, watching this descent into madness is something that we don't see very often in almost any character. Because I haven't seen it right in this way. Like I'm serious, man. Like I felt like I was on a whole nother level watching this stuff. This is like, man, phew, man. This is like when that dude in the 5 Heartbeats got on drugs and we watched him go all the way down. Like it's like that. Was it Jimmy Kane? He didn't want to be in the group no more, or he wanted to come back. It's like that. Like I'm watching you descend into this level of madness. Now, previously, Joffrey was my favorite, like my biggest villain, and he was a very different thing. He was a very disturbed young man, and we got to see him kind of developing and coming into it. But man, this guy is being consumed by it in a way that Joffrey, he is tormented. Joffrey wasn't tormented by what he is, but Homelander very much is tormented by himself. He is his inner demons. Man, it's maddening that he exists with that level of power. But that's what it is there. So we're getting to see something very special out of him. And the performance, the entire story, a lot of good characters, but this is obviously the guy that's going to stand out, I think, for a lot of reasons. Just the depth of the characters is and there's a lot of good character arc in the story. There's a lot of good character development in the story. Ripping with it. But this guy here, man, this guy, this nut job takes the case. Now, in Invincible, that's going to be Mark. Mark, who Invincible himself is the main guy there. And he has a very, very different character arc because he starts off as almost Peter Parker-ish. He's this kind of nerd who can't find his footing, and then his powers start to come in, and then it all magically clicks with the confidence. He starts dating the girl, all that stuff, only to lose all of this, right? Like, maybe not all of it. I think he's still got Eve, but like to see the level of like destruction and death and mutilation that he's been forced to see is just, it's mind-boggling. So Mark goes through his maturation being scarred. His maturity level is riddled with deep internal scarring. So the characters tell us a different viewpoint. Now, the thing about it culturally is that each of these stories kind of leverages our old myth. Like we start from that Superman core, and now we see them as evil. An evil Superman leading this military against us, or we see him as this broken Superman, either the authoritarian or the cynical. And so this is what he bounces between, and this is why it's so hard, because like we have been changing the myth of Superman. And I'm gonna go all the way back to like the Zack Snyder. So this is still like started in my generation where, Superman was fundamentally, at his core, the most righteous guy. That was the whole thing about Superman, is that to have power and restraint, to have all this knowledge and to still be humble. This is what made Superman special. And remember, this is one of our earliest characters ever in comic bookdom, and he's still lasting today. So what we've seen with with the Brightburn, with the boys, with the Omni-Man, with Homelander, all that stuff is the Injustice Gate. We're seeing this evolution or change, because this evolution of who Superman fundamentally was. And this is a big part of kind of carrying it forward. And that's the thing. That new Superman movie came out, and let me tell you, more people were watching this. More people watched these two shows than watched that movie. So that movie, the most recent Superman movie, was going back to old traditional value Superman, kind of, in this world, but he was still that. Whereas what they want to show us is this more, this angry, this broken Superman. But two shows that I think hit it really hard. I've really enjoyed them as we're kind of getting to the end of it now. But it's because Superman was never just a character, right? This was a very much a cultural phenomenon. We have to remember what he stood against, so that the Superman archetype character has evolved into being the fascist himself. That's the whole thing. And it's a weird thing culturally that we took that myth, and that's the expression that we wanted to get out of it, that we actually drove forward, and they have taken this axe to what the core archetype that Superman was, to the point that, like, I think these younger generations, like their Superman and my grandparents' Superman, aren't even the same Superman anymore. Does that really matter? Myths and stories evolve, but somewhere we lose like that core, and it says we don't trust goodness anymore. We don't even aspire to that kind of character being our hero. We want someone more scarred up, more rough. And I don't know if that's smart or not. I don't know. But that's what we're seeing. I wanted to break these two series down a little bit, and just like how they approach it, how they come about both the universe and how they're going to end. The end them is very telling about the two. They start with the same core, with even the same executive producers, but they couldn't be more different in how they're executing it and what they mean. And both of them I've enjoyed. And so shout out to the staff and the actors on both these series. But anyway, I just want to break that down. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back tomorrow, probably a little earlier than this, and do another nice breakdown for you. In the meantime, definitely go and check out the channel. Got some new mythologies coming up, but I am kind of developing on that comic book. It's progressing. I'll have some new content for you guys soon. So I'm going to log off Facebook. I'm going to hit you up first, and then where are you at? Oh, you don't stop, huh?